We all get those annoying scam calls.
Yeah.
You know the ones I'm talking about, like
Yeah.
you've won the lottery or you owe taxes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, those are pretty common.
But the scam we're diving into today, this one's way sneakier. We're talking about the kind of scam that can literally hijack your phone.
Oh, wow.
And you might not even realize it's happening. So get ready, because we're about to unpack the call forwarding scam.
Okay, I'm all ears.
And most importantly, we're going to figure out how to avoid becoming a victim ourselves.
That sounds like a good plan.
So for this deep dive, we've got research from consumer protection agencies, news reports, and even firsthand accounts from people who've been targeted.
Oh, wow, so we're getting the inside scoop.
Exactly.
That's great.
The mission here is to equip everyone listening with the knowledge they need to spot this scam a mile away.
Awesome, let's do it.
So what makes this scam so sneaky is that it exploits a feature most of us use all the time: call forwarding.
Right, like when you want to send your calls to your office phone or something.
Exactly. It's super convenient, right? But the problem is, scammers have figured out how to turn this convenience into a weapon.
Oh, that's not good.
So how does this even work?
Yeah.
Like, I get how I use call forwarding, but how could someone else just take control of my phone like that?
Well, think of it this way. What if someone could secretly redirect your mail without you knowing? That's basically what happens with call forwarding scams.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be a problem. My
Mhm.
mail is definitely important.
Definitely.
So are they, like, going into my phone settings or something?
It's more about tricking you than hacking you. Scammers use different tricks to get you to dial a special code, and they'll often disguise it as something totally harmless.
So you have no idea what you're actually doing.
Right. And what you don't know is that this code actually forwards all your calls and text messages to a number that they control.
Okay, so you think you're talking to, like, your bank, right?
Right.
Or maybe a tech support person. But in reality, you're giving all your information straight to a scammer. That's
Oh.
terrifying.
It is. And our source material actually details how scammers can use this access to really wreak havoc on your life.
Oh, no.
They can intercept two-factor authentication codes,
Oh, yeah.
bank alerts, password reset links, basically anything that gets sent to your phone number.
So it's not just about stealing, like, a few pieces of information, right?
Right.
It's about taking over your entire digital identity.
Exactly. It's like they become you in the online world.
And what are the consequences of that? Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, the sources we've got paint a pretty scary picture. We're
Mhm.
talking about victims experiencing financial losses, identity theft,
Oh, gosh.
even having their social media accounts hijacked. It's like a total nightmare scenario.
That's awful. So let's break down how this scam actually plays out step by step.
Okay, so the first step is the initial contact.
Okay.
It usually starts with a call or a message that's designed to create a sense of urgency or fear.
So they're trying to get you to panic.
Exactly. The scammer might pretend to be from your bank, the IRS, or even a tech support company, and they'll usually claim they've detected some suspicious activity on your account.
I could see how people would fall for that. Everyone worries about security breaches these days.
Right, they prey on those fears.
Yeah.
And once they've got your attention, they'll walk you through these steps to fix the problem. But guess what?
Hmm.
Those steps always involve dialing that sneaky call forwarding code.
So the victim thinks they're helping, right?
Exactly. They're trying to be responsible and protect themselves, but in reality, they're giving the scammer the keys to their entire digital kingdom.
It's like they're being tricked into unlocking the door for the burglar.
Exactly.
So are there different types of call forwarding scams? Or is it all pretty much the same?
Well, the main goal is always the same, to reroute your calls and texts. But there are a few different ways they can do it. The source material outlines three main types. The first one is called phone number hijacking. And this is where scammers actually impersonate your phone provider to gain control of your number.
Well, hold on. They call up my carrier and pretend to be me. That's like next level boldness.
It is, and it works more often than you think. Then there's the SIM card swap scam. This one's a little more technical.
Okay.
But basically, they trick your mobile provider into switching your number to a SIM card that they control.
So in this case, they don't even need you to dial a code.
Exactly.
They go straight to the source.
Straight to the source. And finally, we have account takeover via call forwarding. This is where they use intercepted messages like security codes and password reset links to hijack your online accounts.
So in this case, they set up the call forwarding, wait for you to try and log in somewhere, and then they grab the verification code before it even reaches you.
Exactly. Very sneaky.
That is sneaky. And I think I even remember reading in one of the sources about how some tech support scams can actually use call forwarding too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They might trick you into giving them remote access to your computer or phone.
Right.
And then while you're distracted, they'll slip in that call forwarding code without you even noticing.
Well, this is a lot to think about. So how can we protect ourselves? Like, what are some signs that someone might be trying to pull this on us?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about next.
All right, stay with us as we move into the red flags and warning signs. This is where things get really interesting. So we've just uncovered how these call forwarding scams work.
Yeah.
They're pretty sneaky, right? I mean, it's not just about stealing your info anymore.
No.
They can actually hijack your whole digital life.
Exactly. It's a whole new level of scary. But
Yeah.
don't worry, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
So recognizing those red flags,
Right.
that's your first line of defense.
Okay, so let's talk about those red flags. What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, the source material highlights a few key things. So first, you got to pay attention to any unexpected changes in your call behavior. So, for example, are calls going straight to voicemail even when you know you have signal?
Oh, okay.
Or are you suddenly getting a bunch of missed calls
Yeah.
from numbers you don't even recognize?
Right.
Those could be signs that your calls are being forwarded without you knowing.
That makes sense. It's like if your mail suddenly stopped arriving,
Right.
you'd know something was up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another big red flag is receiving messages you didn't send.
Okay.
So this could be anything from verification codes to text alerts.
Oh, wow.
If you're getting messages for accounts you haven't used in a while, or even worse, messages confirming actions you didn't actually take, that's a major warning sign.
Okay, so if I get a text saying, like, your password for Bank of America has been changed, but I never tried to log in, that's a problem.
Huge problem. You need to take action right away. And along those same lines, keep an eye out for any unexplained activity on your bank accounts or online profiles. So things like unauthorized login attempts, password changes, or even strange transactions. That could all be signs that someone has accessed your accounts through a call forwarding scam.
Got it. This is all really helpful information.
Good.
But what can we do to protect ourselves proactively?
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually stop this from happening in the first place?
Well, one of the simplest but most effective things you can do is set up a dedicated security PIN with your phone provider.
Okay, a security pin.
Yeah, it's a separate PIN just for authorizing changes to your account.
Mm-hmm.
Including those call forwarding settings, think of it like a double lock on your front door.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if a scammer tricks me into giving them my regular account PIN, they can't touch the call forwarding without this extra layer of security.
Exactly. It's a really strong deterrent.
Okay.
And speaking of deterrence, have you ever considered using voice authentication?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, a lot of providers offer it these days.
Right.
It's becoming more and more common.
How does that even work?
So it analyzes the unique qualities of your voice. So things like your pitch and tone to make sure it's really you trying to access your account.
Okay.
So if a scammer tries to impersonate you over the phone, the system will flag it as suspicious
Right.
because their voice won't match your profile.
That's like straight out of a sci-fi movie or something.
I know, right? It might sound futuristic,
Mhm.
but it's honestly becoming a pretty standard security feature. And it adds like a huge extra layer of protection against anyone trying to access your account without permission.
Okay, so secure PIN and voice authentication for our phones. What about online accounts?
Right.
Like, a lot of the sources mention that online banking and social media are like prime targets for this stuff.
They are. Well, obviously, you know the basics. Strong passwords.
Yeah, of course.
But let's take it a step further. I know it's tempting to use the same password for multiple sites, right?
Yep. It's just easier to remember.
It is, but it's also incredibly risky. If a scammer gets hold of just one of your passwords, they could potentially unlock a whole chain of your accounts.
It's like having the same key for your house, your car, and your office.
Exactly.
One key to rule them all. And then if you lose it, you're in big trouble.
You are. So each online account needs its own strong, unique password.
Okay.
Think long, complex. Ideally, you want a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols.
Okay.
And I know that can feel overwhelming to keep track of.
It is a lot.
Yeah. So if that's the case, there are password managers that can help you generate and store those passwords securely.
I use a password manager. It makes things so much easier.
They're a great tool.
Yeah.
And speaking of tools, let's talk about security questions.
Yeah.
You know, those ones they ask you to set up when you create an account.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what street did you grow up on? Or what's your mother's maiden name?
Right, right. Those always seem so important.
They do.
But I've also heard that they're not actually as secure as we might think.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Oh,
A
oh.
lot of information that was once considered a secret is now publicly available online.
Oh.
So scammers can actually find this info really easily through social media or those data broker websites.
Oh, wow.
They can piece together all those seemingly innocent details to answer those security questions that are supposed to be secret.
So those questions are actually working against us.
In a way, yes. The source material even mentions a case where a victim had all their accounts compromised because a scammer was able to answer their security questions just by looking at their public Facebook profile.
Oh, gosh. So what can we do about it? Should we just, skip the security questions altogether?
Well, some services let you choose your own security questions, which is definitely a better option.
Okay.
But even then, you got to be strategic. You want to choose questions with answers that are hard to guess but still easy for you to remember.
Okay, so instead of what's your favorite color,
Hmm.
maybe something more unique,
Right.
like what was your childhood nickname? Or
Sure.
what street did your best friend live on in high school?
Exactly. Think outside the box. Don't be afraid to be a little quirky with it. And if you can't choose your own questions, at least try to make your answers harder to crack.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah.
maybe add an extra letter or number to the real answer that only you know.
That's clever. So even if they find the real answer, it won't match what I've put in. I like that.
Exactly. The main goal is just to make it as difficult as possible for those scammers to figure out your security.
Okay. All of this is great advice.
Yeah.
But what happens if, despite all our best efforts, we do become a victim of a call forwarding scam? What do we do then?
That's a really important question, and it's important to remember that you're not alone if this happens to you.
Okay.
These scammers, they're professionals,
Right.
and it's totally normal to feel overwhelmed if you find yourself in that situation.
Right. Okay, that's reassuring. But what should we actually do? Who can we turn to for help?
Well, that's what we're going to dive into next.
All right, stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, right? We've talked about how these call forwarding scams actually work, the red flags to watch out for, and some ways to protect ourselves.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense, but important stuff for everyone to know.
Absolutely. But even with all those precautions, sometimes scammers still manage to slip through the cracks.
It's true, they can be pretty sneaky.
Yeah. So let's talk about what to do if we actually become a victim. I imagine it can feel pretty overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a stressful situation.
Right. So knowing the next steps is crucial. What do we do? Who do we call? All that good stuff.
Right. So the first and most important step is to contact your phone provider immediately,
Yep.
right away. They can help you disable the call forwarding and secure your account, basically shutting down the scammer's access point.
So basically, hit the panic button with our carrier right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sooner you act, the better. And while you're on the phone with them, make sure you change your account PI,
Right.
especially if you think the scammer might have gotten hold of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about all our online accounts? I mean, those are probably compromised too, right?
Most likely. It's always better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, change your passwords for everything. Your bank, email, social media, shopping sites, anything you can think of.
Oh, that's a lot of passwords to change.
Yeah.
Any tips to make that whole process less painful?
This is where those password managers we talked about earlier can be a real lifesaver.
Right.
They can generate those strong, unique passwords for each of your sites and store them securely
Okay.
so you don't have to try to remember them all.
Okay, so we've locked down our phone, our online accounts, all of that. What else should we do?
The next step is to notify your bank
Okay.
and any other institutions like credit card companies or online retailers about the potential fraud. They can walk you through their security procedures
Okay.
and hopefully help minimize any damage that's already been done.
So basically anyone that might be linked to our finances.
Exactly. It's all about damage control at that point. And don't forget to check your credit report for any suspicious activity.
Oh, right. Good point.
You can even freeze your credit if you need to.
Yeah, I've heard about that, but it always seems like a hassle.
I know it can be, but honestly, it's worth it for the peace of mind, especially in this kind of situation.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, so we've done all that. Is there anything else?
Yeah, one more important thing. A lot of people overlook this step, but it's really important to report the scam to the appropriate authorities.
Right, the FTC, the IC3, all those agencies we mentioned before. But, I mean, if we've already taken steps to secure our accounts and minimize the damage, is reporting it really necessary?
It really is. Even if you feel like you've contained the situation, Reporting the scam helps the authorities track these criminals
Oh,
and hopefully prevent other people from becoming victims in the future.
right.
Plus, having a record of the incident can be really helpful if you need to dispute fraudulent charges later on,
Oh,
or if you run into any identity theft issues down the road.
so it's like adding another layer of protection even after the fact.
Exactly. And remember, you are not alone in this. These scams are unfortunately becoming more and more common. Yeah?
And there are a lot of resources available to help you recover.
You mentioned some resources earlier, like the Identity Theft Resource Center. What were some of the others?
Yeah, so the source material also mentions a few others,
Okay.
like the National Cybersecurity Alliance and the Better Business Bureau.
Right.
They offer tons of information and support for victims of scams and identity theft.
It's good to know that there's help out there if you need it. It's like having a whole team of experts in your corner.
Exactly. You don't have to go through this alone. And don't forget about the power of community, too. There are online forums and support groups where you can connect with other people who've gone through the same thing.
That's a good point. I mean, sometimes just knowing that other people have been through the same thing can make a huge difference. It can feel really isolating dealing with this kind of stuff on your own.
It absolutely can. Sharing your story can actually help other people.
Right.
And hearing their stories can give you valuable insights and coping mechanisms. That's true. Okay, so this has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much.
We have.
Like all about the mechanics of the scam, the red flags, the preventative measures, and what to do if you become a victim. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's all about empowering ourselves with knowledge, right? The more we understand these scams, the better we can protect ourselves and the people we care about.
Absolutely. It's not about living in fear. It's about being informed and proactive.
Mm.
And as we wrap up this episode, I want to circle back to something we touched on a bit earlier.
Okay.
The whole role of tech companies in all of this.
Yeah, that's a big one. We talked about how these companies have a responsibility to protect their users,
Right.
but there's also that whole issue of privacy.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. I mean, we want to be protected,
Yeah,
but we don't want to give up all our privacy in the process.
exactly. So where do we draw that line? What's the right balance between security and privacy?
That's a big question. And that's what I want to leave everyone listening with today. Think about your own digital footprint. How much information are you comfortable sharing online? What steps could you take to protect your privacy without, sacrificing security?
Yeah, that's a conversation we all need to be having. It's not just about individual responsibility, it's about collective action, too. We need to work together, individuals, tech companies, policymakers, everyone, to create a safer and more secure digital world for everybody.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of call forwarding scams. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you found this information helpful. And remember, knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. So be sure to share this episode with your friends and family to help spread awareness about this growing threat. Stay safe out there.